Today, we're going to do a deep, forensic dive into a single, incredibly powerful verse from the Quran. Our mission is to really unpack its theological weight, piece by piece, and see what it tells us about perception, reality, and ultimately, divine justice. Let's get into it.
So this is it. This is the verse at the very heart of our analysis, Surah Maryam, verse 38. And right off the bat, you can feel this incredible tension it sets up. On one hand, you have this shockingly sharp perception in the hereafter, but on the other, a state of what's called manifest error in the here and now. That contrast, that paradox, that's the core of our entire investigation today.
And just so we're perfectly clear on our methodology, this isn't just our own interpretation. Our whole analysis is grounded in this very specific scholarly work, an exegesis by Ayatollah Javadi Amoli. So think of this as a forensic examination of his arguments, of his theological reasoning. We're following his steps.
All right, to tackle this systematically, we've broken down our analysis into 5 parts. First, we'll look at that astonishing perception. Then, we'll ask if it's a blessing or an act of justice. After that, we'll explore a related discussion on the world of angels, then unpack the key idea of lifting the veils, and finally, we'll look at what all this tells us about the enduring face of God.
Okay, let's jump right into part 1. We're starting with the first half of the verse. It's this statement of just sheer astonishment at the senses of the unjust on the day they finally have to face reality.
Now, to really get this, we have to look at the original Arabic here. The grammatical structure, asmi bihim wa absir, is something special. It's what's known as a formula of wonder or amazement. So it's not just saying, oh, they'll hear and see well. No, it's an exclamation. It's meant to convey a kind of shocking intensity, like you won't believe how incredibly well they will hear and see. And this, right here, leads us to the absolute central question that the source text is trying to wrestle with. Why? Why would people who are described as wrongdoers, people who are facing condemnation, be given this kind of supercharged perception? It just feels completely counterintuitive. And that's the puzzle we really need to solve.
So, this leads us perfectly into our second section, where we dig into the core of the author's argument. We've got to figure out the true nature of this heightened awareness. Is it some kind of gift, or is it something else entirely?
The author presents us with this really fascinating dilemma, a fork in the road. On one side, you have the possibility that this is a final mercy, a blessing, or a gift of perfect clarity. But on the other side, is it a gift at all? Or is it just an unavoidable, inherent consequence of divine justice finally being laid bare? Well, the text argues, and argues very forcefully for that second option. This is justice. It is not a blessing. And the reasoning is absolutely critical. First, this perception is involuntary. They can't just shut their eyes or plug their ears. Second, it brings absolutely no reward or peace. In fact, it's a source of pure torment and regret. It's a forced confrontation with the real consequences of their actions, and all their worldly excuses, all their deceptions, have just vanished. So the crucial point, the real takeaway here, is that this clarity is the sentence. It's not something added to the punishment, it is the punishment.
Okay, so now the author does something interesting. He pivots to a related theological topic to help us deepen our understanding here. The conversation turns to the world of angels, and specifically, their knowledge of things that are way beyond our own senses. And he asks this very specific question. We tend to think of angels as these all-powerful beings, but is their knowledge actually limitless? Do all of them really have access to what's called the ghaib, or the unseen?
Before we can even answer that, we need to get on the same page about this term, ghaib. It isn't just something that's hidden, like a secret. It's the entire realm of reality that is fundamentally beyond normal human perception. It's known fully and completely only by God, although He can, of course, grant pieces of that knowledge to whomever He wishes.
And what the text shows us, as you can see right here, is that angel isn't some monolithic job description. There's a whole hierarchy of knowledge. You've got some, like the ilahiyun, the divine ones, who have direct access to the unseen. But then you have others, like the Kiraman Katiban, the noble scribes who record our deeds. Their knowledge is laser-focused on their specific task. They act on God's command, they don't possess their own independent knowledge of the absolute unseen.
And if you look at the source text itself, you can see this is a very detailed, very systematic categorization. So what's the whole point of this detour into the world of angels? Well, it's profound. Access to reality is not uniform. It's not the same for everyone, not even for angels. And understanding that distinction between limited knowledge and absolute knowledge is so important, because it helps us frame what's happening when human perception, which is also limited, is suddenly made absolute.
This brings us to the central metaphor that really ties everything we've talked about together, this concept of veils being lifted. This is how the text connects our ignorance in this world with that sharp, agonizing perception in the next.
Let's circle back to the second half of our verse. In this world, the wrongdoers are in manifest error. The text interprets this error as being covered by veils, veils of desire, of ego, of deception, all the worldly distractions that stop them from seeing reality for what it actually is.
But on that day, the text argues, there are no more veils. It's all gone. Reality itself becomes direct perception. And think about what that means. The sharp hearing and sight. They aren't brand new senses they're being given. It's their existing senses, finally, for the first time, experiencing reality with zero filter, with absolutely no distortion. It's a pure and frankly terrifying form of awareness.
And if you're thinking, okay, that's a cool idea, but is it just an interpretation? Well, the author brings the receipts. He points to this other verse, this time from Surah Kaf, and it's a perfect parallel. We have removed from you your cover, and your sight this day is sharp. It explicitly links the removal of a cover, a veil, with that sudden, shocking sharpness of sight.
Okay, let's move to our final section. Let's see how all of this builds to a really profound philosophical conclusion about the very nature of existence itself.
So if everything that we perceive in this world is filtered through these temporary, perishable veils, it forces you to ask the ultimate question, right? What is actually real? What's left? What endures when all of those veils are finally stripped away for good?
The answer, according to the text, lies in this crucial theological concept, wajh Allah, which is often translated as the face of God. But as the author is very careful to clarify, this is not a physical face. It refers to the divine essence, the ultimate reality, and any action or intention that is purely and completely oriented towards that reality.
And once again, this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. The source anchors it directly in the Quran, citing this incredibly powerful verse from Surah Al-Qasas. Everything will perish except his face. I mean, that's the ultimate statement on what's permanent versus what's just temporary.
So here it is. The key takeaway from this entire forensic analysis is this. The only thing that has true, lasting reality is that which is oriented towards the divine, towards the wajh Allah. Everything else that we build our lives around, our ambitions, our deceptions, our worldly attachments, the text interprets them as nothing more than perishable veils. And when those veils are removed, we are left face to face with what is eternally real, for better or for worse.
And that leaves us with one final, thought-provoking question to really reflect on. If that state of manifest error described in the verse is just a state of being veiled, and those veils literally define our everyday reality, then what fundamental truths about ourselves, about our world, might be hiding right now, in plain sight?